Hi everyone, my name is Jaitni and I am a mindset and nutrition coach. I help clients cope with stress, depression, or anxiety through healthy habit formation, lifestyle changes, and proper nutrition. Every week, I drop a wellness related video, so if wellness interests you or intrigues you, please make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I also send out bi weekly self love and self care reminders via my blog. So if you're more of a reader, please make sure to sign up for the blog. The link for that will be in the description. And lastly, for more such reminders on a consistent basis and a more frequent basis, you can follow my Instagram. It is at Imperfect Bodies by C Modi. So this week's video focuses on a form of therapy called shadow work. So what I'll be doing is sharing what shadow work is, the importance of doing it, and then some of the benefits that you can gain from doing shadow work. So basically there's a child in all of us. Whether you're 20 years old, 40 years old, 60, however old you are, there's still a child within you. At the same time, there are parts of ourselves that we tend to repress or ignore. We may do that intentionally or unintentionally. These parts, basically personality traits, they might be good or bad. A lot of times this repression or this ignorance, starts in childhood. When you are growing up, there's a possibility that you are made to feel unloved or unworthy or unlikable if you displayed those parts of yourself. For example, if you were a really sensitive child, but you were made fun of for being very sensitive, or you were told that, you need to have a hard shell, you need to have a thick skin to survive in this world, your sensitivity might be a part of you that you start to suppress or that you just start to completely ignore. But what happens is, you can't always put a lid on these emotions forever, because when there are triggers, these emotions will surface, and they don't surface in the best way possible. And what they lead to is inner turmoil, as well as difficulties in relationships that you have with others. These could be with your significant other, with your child, with your parent, with anybody. So that's why shadow work is really important. It's those emotional personality traits, emotional traits, mental traits that you have ignored and that you have tried to hide for a very long time. But the longer you hide them, the harder it gets to manage yourself, your emotions, as well as your relationship with others. So shadow work is about bringing those emotions and those personality traits to the surface, making peace with them, understanding them, and then moving forward from that. So your shadow self is that part of you that you have repressed, and shadow work is the part of bringing those emotions to the surface. So that's the concept of shadow work. Now, just a word of advice, shadow work is very complex. It's also very time consuming. It's not something that you can just do for a month and then expect, life altering changes and never do it again. It's a pretty long term process. And because it is so complex, ideally you want to do it with somebody who has expertise in this area. So more than likely, that's going to be a therapist that has some experience with this or is pretty knowledgeable about it. So I would recommend, please don't do shadow work on your own or think you can just do it on your own. You can definitely contribute to it, but do it in conjunction with somebody who's qualified and who can help you, who can really show you the way and lead the way for you. So that is shadow work in a nutshell. And what I'll be doing is sharing some benefits of shadow work, because there are some huge takeaways. It takes a lot of effort, and there's a lot of trauma that could come out of it. There's a lot of unwanted emotions that might surface as you do shadow work, but it really pays off in the long run. And so that's what I'm about to share, is some of the benefits of doing shadow work. Okay, so the number one benefit of shadow work is it teaches you to accept and love yourself for who you are. Change cannot come from repression. Change cannot come from a place of criticism. If you do want to change certain parts of you, you first need to acknowledge them, accept them, and then work on changing them. And of course, it has to come from a place of love. So when you start to bring those emotions up front and you start to face them, you really learn to love yourself and accept yourself for who you are. It's a way for you to feel like a whole person again. You know, you don't have to hide behind a facade. You don't need to hide behind certain traits that maybe as a child you were made to feel were not worthy. So that's the beauty of shadow work, is your shadow, your true self, comes to the forefront and you really learn to accept and love yourself for who you are. Number two, it kind of builds on the first benefit, is it can really help you boost your confidence. So the more you accept yourself, the more confident you become, and the more comfortable you become in your skin. And the way you carry yourself and all of that can look so different when you start to accept yourself for who you are. So it really does have a huge impact on your self-esteem and how you start to show up in this world. So with that shadow work, once you begin to accept and love yourself, it can then lead to a bump in your confidence level and your self-esteem and how you start to show up in this world. Benefit number three, and this is a big one, and I've seen this in my personal life, is you start to experience better relationships with others and yourself. When you have a solid relationship with yourself, you are bound to have a good relationship with others. You become a lot better at vocalizing your needs, making sure your needs are met. You become really good at setting boundaries. You learn to say no without feeling guilty. You learn to prioritize, and you learn to put yourself first. So that's the beauty of shadow work, is better relationships with others. You will be less triggered by what others are doing. And it will also teach you to communicate better, as well as just accept them for who they are, because you are learning to accept yourself with all of you. Whatever you see as flaws or imperfections, all of that you're learning to embrace, every bit of you, and accept it and love yourself for who you are. So you will experience less conflict within yourself, and definitely less conflict in your relationships with others. Again, these are not just romantic relationships, but any relationships, whether it's between a parent and a child, or with a significant other, or even with friends. Benefit number four is you start to feel more whole and complete. So if you've ever felt like you don't belong, you don't fit in, you're not normal, you feel like a freak, or you feel like you don't fit in, any of that stuff, if you feel like you're on the outskirts, or you're an outlier, this is where shadow work can help. Because you really start to feel like a whole person, an entire individual. You're not hiding parts of yourself, consciously or subconsciously. You're not ashamed of those parts. You are just bringing them to the forefront and being who you are and working on yourself. So that's something that's really phenomenal, is when you start to show up every single day as a whole person, as a complete person, and it's not just parts and bits and pieces of you that you get to see, or that you get to hide, or that other people get to see. People get to see you for who you are, and that's kind of the beauty of it. So shadow work really helps a ton with that, where you can feel like a whole person and a complete person, and you're not fighting yourself constantly, trying to be somebody else. And then benefit number five is it can help stop the negative self-talk. So when you're not yourself, or when you're constantly trying to not show certain parts of yourself, you will notice that there is a ton of negative self-talk. But when you start to do shadow work, and you start to make some progress with that, and your shadow self starts to emerge, you will realize that the negative self-talk is automatically subsiding. Because you stop criticizing those parts, you're not ashamed of those parts, you're not running away from those parts of you, those personality traits. You're accepting yourself for who you are. So that is something that is really wonderful about the shadow work, is that you're not speaking poorly to yourself, and you're coming from a place of love and kindness and compassion. So lots of benefits with shadow work, but from this, I'm sure you can tell that none of this happens overnight. Like I mentioned, shadow work takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort. It can bring back deeply buried memories, deeply buried emotions to the surface. It can bring up a lot of trauma, and it can take a lot out of you as you start to face these past memories, or these past traits of yourself. But it is worth it in the long run. It's hard work initially, but as you start to see even the smallest positive changes in your life, you will be able to remain committed and you'll be able to continue working on it. There's really no timeline to it. There's no expiration to it. There's no end to it. It's just a little bit that you keep doing, that you keep chipping away at. And very important, like I mentioned earlier, please, please, please seek the help of a professional if you're going to get into shadow work, because it can come with a lot of baggage, it can come with a lot of feelings, and just a lot in general. So why not have the support of somebody who's qualified, who can hold your hand and lead the way for you? So that's a little bit about shadow work, shadow self, and some of the wonderful benefits of shadow work. So if it's something that you're interested in, I wish you the very best in your journey. And as always, thank you for tuning in. I will catch you here next week. Until then, please take really good care of yourself, and I will see you very soon. Bye.